Hey guys, so today we're going to talk a little bit about finances, and I know this isn't normally what we go over on most of the YouTube videos that I have, but I think that this is super important because from what I've been reading and listening to, a lot of people aren't quite sure how to budget their money and build wealth. So today I'm going to kind of talk about ways that you can become a millionaire if you save correctly. And I kind of learned this stuff because Riley and I have had to do some financial classes before we get married through our church. So pretty much we had to sign up for this Dave Ramsey program, and he's a multi-millionaire real estate guy, and he set up 7 steps to become financially independent and build wealth. And so pretty much I'm going to explain all of these steps to you guys and how you can do it too. So you're probably wondering why Riley and I have to do this financial stuff before we get married, and it's actually because the #1 cause of divorce in the United States is due to money. So it was important for us to learn this, and it's important just for anybody in general, whether you're single or getting married. So step #1 is to get $1,000 into your emergency fund. So you set up a savings account and you save, and you do not save money in your regular spending account. You specifically set up the account to get $1,000 in an emergency fund in case something goes wrong. And I know we don't think that things are going to go wrong, but they do. You might have to something goes wrong with your car, you have to get an oil change, or I don't know. Random stuff happens all the time and you have to be prepared for that. So you're going to set up that fund, and how you do it is through creating a budget. So first you write down all your monthly expenses. This is going to be your mortgage payments, utilities, things like that. And then you also, your main 4 priorities is what Dave Ramsey calls the 4 walls. That's your food, utilities, shelter, and transportation. And you might see that clothing isn't mentioned in this, and normally most people have enough clothing to get by. So you set up those 4 main things. Those are going to be your priorities, and you can get an app where you put in each category, your budget. So you might put in 10% for food. I'd say 10 to 15% for food because people go through a lot more food, especially families. So 10 to 15% for food, 10 utilities, 10% for gas and transportation. You might need a little bit more. You're gonna need a miscellaneous fund because obviously random things do happen. So you gotta budget that in there too. If you take your income each month, subtract your expenses from it, it should equal 0. And you have to try this for 3 months just to get in the swing of things and get used to it, but do not quit before those 3 months. Also, you wanna factor in things that you pay for each month. These are gonna be your gym memberships. If you guys go out to eat, which you know what, you shouldn't be going out to eat if you have debt. We'll cover that later. But I would recommend looking at your budget as a permission to spend money each month instead of, oh, I can't spend money because I have a budget. Look at it oh, I have $400 this month to spend on groceries. I have $200 this month to go do this. You should look over it with your partner, or if you're single, have an accountability partner, somebody who wants you to do well in life that can look over this and help keep you accountable. If you're in a relationship, one of you needs to create the budget and bring it to the other person and say, what do you think of this? And that other person has to have a say in this budget, because if they're gonna stick to it, they have to change it a little bit to make it more adaptable to themselves, because if they feel like they helped a little bit, they're gonna be more apt to stick to it. Keep track of all the expenses that you spend every single month, and that way that you know you're on track. A huge tip for this is to take that amount of money and put it into an envelope. Get that cash. Do not use a credit card, because it's so easy to just swipe a credit card, put the credit card back in your pocket, take whatever you just bought and get out. You don't feel like you really purchased it. You're just financing it. So if you keep cash with you, you have $400 to go to the grocery store, and you walk into the grocery store and you're like, oh, I don't want to give that $300 away. And then the next time you go in, you're gonna be like, hey, I only have $100 left. I have to budget for this. I can't go over it. It's so much harder to give away cash than it is to just swipe a card. So keep cash with you in the set envelopes and bring them with you so you know that that's all that you get to spend. Step #2 is to pay off all of your debt. 8 out of 10 people are living paycheck to paycheck. And people typically go into debt because they spend their money buying things that they don't need and that they can't afford to impress people that they don't even like. So the first thing is just be content with where you are and stop looking at people's Instagrams or Facebook pages and comparing yourself to them and seeing them buy like these new fancy cars and new toys and nice clothes, and because the chances are they're in debt too and they're just trying to show off. So if you're trying to catch up to them, everybody's just playing this race where they're trying to be better than one another, but really nobody actually has any money. You got to pay off your debt. And how do you do that? You either start working more, you get another part-time job, you start selling stuff. Here's one thing that most people don't want to do is sell your car and buy something not that nice and drive it. Because the second you take that car off the lot, it just dropped an insane amount of value. Like when I was young, my dad spent $2,000 on a car. He sold his truck, bought a $2,000 car, and drove me to basketball practice and school, and I was so embarrassed, but now I 100% understand why he did it, because why do you need a nice vehicle? Like, it gets you from place A to place B, and all it does is drain your bank account. The average car payment for a person in the US is $507 over 84 months. If you put $500 a month into the stock market from the time that you're 30 to 70 years old, you will have $5 to $6 million in the stock market. Like, I like cars, but I do not like them for $5 or $6 million. That is not something that I'm willing to give up. So sell your car. It might like, it's gonna hurt a lot, but it will probably be worth it in the long run if you drive something very nice. Another thing, get rid of your credit cards because it's so easy to swipe. People that carry cash with them instead of using credit cards spend 47% less money than people that carry credit cards. So just another reason to carry cash with you. Get rid of that credit card too. People are like, oh, I need a good FICO score. That's so not true. That is literally based off of debt, and debt. Like, how good are you with debt? So you spend money to increase your FICO score. Why? So you can go into more debt. So you can increase your FICO score. Why? So you can go into more debt. It's just a vicious cycle. So get rid of your credit card. At least if you're gonna do that and you want a card to keep with you, use a debit card. It's the same thing, but it takes money out of your account and you cannot go into debt. Now, to actually pay off of your debt, list all of your expenses, like your mortgage payment, your car payment, every single payment that you have, and list it from least expensive to the most expensive, and pay off that least expensive one first. Most people are gonna say, well, why don't you pay the one off with the highest interest rate? Because that one's gonna take the longest to pay off, and then you're not gonna see in your results and you're gonna quit. So pay off that first one, and as soon as you pay off that first one, you're gonna see that second one, be like, gosh, I got momentum going. Now I paid off my second one. Now I paid off my third one. Gosh, this feels good. I'm almost done. So you just keep going and going. So, and then in the long run, when you look at it and you pay off that first, you pay off the most expensive one first compared to the least expensive, there's probably like a month worth of expenses difference. It's not that much in the long run. So get hyped about it. Get that first one out, get that second one out, and keep it rolling. Step number 3 is to make your emergency fund to 3 to 6 of your monthly expenses. They say that 80% of people use their credit card to cover emergencies. Immediately you're going into debt. To prevent that from happening, you need to have an emergency account set up. Instead of having the $1,000, you're now going to have like 3 to 6 months of monthly expenses in your bank account saved for emergencies. If you are a single family income household, you're self-employed, or you work on commissions. If you have an employer and you have a stable, steady job. When you determine how much these expenses are, you want to figure out what your monthly expenses are, multiply it by either 3 or 6, and you get your number, and then you need to talk with your partner about what an emergency is. So this could be like going to the hospital, you end up having a child that you weren't planning on having, because those things cost money that you're not prepared for, and you need to be prepared for it. I mean, if you have a family member that's in the hospital and you're sitting there worried about expenses instead of being there present with your family, that's not how you want to live. One thing, once you use your emergency fund, you want to build it back up afterwards. Do not forget to build it back up, because emergencies keep coming. Step number 4 is to save 15% of your household income for retirement. So put that into your 401k. When they interviewed over 10,000 people who have become millionaires, without the help of others, their number one tool for getting there was investing in their 401k. 52% of Americans that are working right now have less than $10,000 saved in the retirement fund. And if I were you, I would like to have a lot more money in my retirement fund than $10,000. So this is why you need to sit down with your partner or your accountability partner or your husband or whoever and figure out why you want that money. So save your money so that one day you can do this instead of working until the day that you die. So to show you guys the power of compound interest and why investing is so important for your future, I'm gonna give you an example. So say I start investing at age 21 and I put $200 a month in until I'm age 29. That's $2,400 a year. I stop at age 29. On age 30, don't put any more in. And then when I'm 67 years old, I will have $2.5 million in that account. Now you have the person who looks at me and says, wow, that's really good. I should start investing. And they start at year 30, they're 30 years old, they put the same amount in, $200 a month, up until they're age 67. So overall, they're putting in $91,000 compared to my $21,000. At the time that they hit 67 years of age, they're only gonna have $1.5 million in there, compared to me who has another $1 million on top of that, just because I started so much earlier than they did. They tripled the amount of money that I put in, but they started so much later. So that's why it's so important to get your debt paid off early so you can start investing so much faster. I forgot to tell you guys that is also at 11% rate of return. You never know what the market's gonna do, but that seems to be pretty steady. So you can be thinking, where do I get all this money? Well, if you're in college like me, you can stop spending $50 a night at the bars, tobacco, stop making your trips to the coffee shop or going to get protein shakes like me every single week, or protein bars, things like that. I mean, there's lots of little ways that you can cut money, and that's why budgeting is so helpful in this instance. Also, I have some stats here. I'm reading this book. It's called The Millionaire Fast Lane by MJ DeMarco. It says a person under the age of 55 is 70% likely to have zero net worth or negative net worth. A person in the 35 to 44 age range has a median net worth of $18,197 excluding home equity, and a person in the age group of 45 to 54 has a median net worth of $38,626 excluding home equity. Using compound interest and saving and putting a little bit away each month can get you so much farther than that. Step number 5 is to save for your kids' college fund. Some people want to put their kids first before their own retirement plan. Don't do that, because it's 100% guaranteed that you're going to retire. It is not 100% guaranteed that your kid's going to go to college. There's like a 1 in 3 chance that your kid goes to college. That's what the stats are these days. There are 2 options for creating an account, a savings account for your kid to go to college. One of them is an educational savings account, and that one is invested in mutual funds. You can put in $2,000 a year, and that's tax-free. The only problem with that is that if you make a certain amount of money, you don't qualify for this. You can't apply for it. But if say your kid's born and you invest for 18 years in a row, you're gonna have $120,000 in that account for them by the time that they go to college. If you have like an 8-year-old or something, then you're gonna have closer to about $38,000 by the time that they go to college, just because that's how compound interest works. Either way, that's a lot of money. Your second option is a 529 plan. That's what my parents had set up for me when I was born, which, you know what is really sad? Growing up, I was always like almost embarrassed to tell people that my parents had set up a college fund for me, because the rest of my friends were paying their way through college, and I kind of felt like I should be too. But I come to think, like, I shouldn't feel bad about that, because why isn't every single parent doing this? Like, if you follow all these steps, which my parents did, then they should be able to help me out with my college, and you should start changing that family tree. Like, wouldn't you want to be the person to pay for your kids' college and change that family tree? Like, I just think it was very smart of my parents, and I'm very thankful for it every single day because now I can come out of college debt-free. Granted, I did take other jobs and I worked really hard too, but it helps a lot. So this is the plan that my parents use. What I've heard about it though is that you need to keep track of where your money's going, because there are some plans where you don't know where your money's going and it can be a little bit more risky. So they said you should look into it a little bit more. You want to know how your kids can also get out of college debt-free, or how you can get out of college debt-free? You can get a job. Like me, I worked from the time I was 10 years old until I went to college. I saved all of that money through every single summer, spent that on college, and then I worked throughout college. I took a few different jobs throughout college. There's scholarships and grants that you can apply for. The biggest thing is do not go to a private school. Go to an affordable school. Stay in state. I mean, you cross those certain lines, you're out of state and the tuition goes whoop. Stay in state. The average cost to go to a private school a year is $19,500, and to go in state to a public college is $9,500 a year. That's a huge difference. And people always think like, oh, you're gonna go to a private school, you're immediately gonna get a better job and you're gonna be so prestige, and this is so not true. People are gonna hire you whether you have a degree from a public school or a private school. So save your money, do not go to private schools. Another option is, when I was in high school, there was this thing called post-secondary enrollment, and when I was a junior and senior in high school, I was able to take college credits through a local community college. So I did that, I got all my generals done, and when I went to a university, all my credits had transferred over, and then I just paid by the credit at the university since I wasn't considered a full-time student. That saved me a ton of money right there. Even though I went for 4 years, I didn't pay as much as the people that actually had to go to school for all 4. Even some community colleges are just free in general, so look into those too. You can go to online programs. Any way that you can get a college degree, do it. It doesn't have to be expensive. Step number 6 is to pay off your house early, because imagine how much money you're gonna have left over when you don't have any loans to pay back and no mortgage to pay. Like, you get all that done, you're gonna have like an extra $2,500 in your bank account each month, or you can invest that. So just keep that ball rolling, get that house paid for, get everything paid for, and you never have to rely on somebody again. You never have to owe a bank again in your life. And step number 7 is to build wealth and be outrageously generous. He told a story of this girl who just went to support her friend at church. She wasn't religious, she just went to a church group meeting, and they were all talking about how they were struggling in finances, and she's like, I felt like I needed to share my story because everybody else was too. She said, I'm a single mom, I have 2 kids at home, I work full-time during the day, and I just took a part-time job at night just so I can afford to pay for my car and my car insurance. And she's like, I just don't have any money left over, and it's been really hard. And she said the guy across the circle reached into his pocket and he took the key off the chain and tossed it to her. And he said, go sell your car. And she's like, so I walked out in the parking lot and he gave me his Nissan Altima, and I sold my car and don't have any payments, and now I can raise my kids. And she's like, everybody in the group started crying, and I started crying, and I was baptized the next week. Dave Ramsey also said that he went out to eat one night with one of his friends, and one of his friends is a multimillionaire, and Dave said to the man, I saw you just took all your grandkids and your whole family on a cruise vacation for a couple weeks. Like, if you don't mind me asking, how much did that cost? And he said it was $67,000. And he said, but you know what the funny thing was, is that the week after we got home, and it was before Christmas, and my church asked me to donate. So I bought a bike for every single kid in that church, and he said all I asked was that all my family members that I had taken on this vacation show up and help hand out the bikes to these kids. And he's like, so we all showed up and we handed out all the bikes. And he said, guess which event made my family happier? And he said, hands down, it was handing out the bikes to the kids. And obviously, like, enjoy your wealth too. You worked really hard for it. Buy those toys that you want once all your debt is paid off and you have your 401k and your kids are in college. Like, enjoy the wealth that you build, but be able to share it as well, because that's going to make you happier than just spending it on yourself.